Now, how's everything going, Ira? I know you've been going through a rough time. I'm praying for a quick recovery and that you're feeling better every day.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, rotator cuff, and a lot of people have it a lot worse. But yeah, this is a tough one. I had my share of sports injuries throughout my career, but getting through it. Today's day 7, and each day gets better and better. So it's good. I got a goal, and I want to get back to the pool and back to normal. Hopefully by May or June.
Yeah, so I'm praying for you, and I know you will. Just take it day by day. And I know the Jets, they're not making things better for you as it's another season down the drain. And we pretty much knew that the last time that we talked, and at 4-11 right now. And then they play Buffalo this upcoming Sunday. What are your thoughts on the head coaching position now? Because I think they should bring in Mike Vrabel right now because he's available. They can bring him in.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, who knows? Maybe they have a handshake agreement in place and maybe they're waiting to find a GM before they announce it. I mean, when I look at the big picture, like if I was Mike Vrabel, and I know he said he'd be interested in the Jet job, is that posturing or not? And one of the things that concerns me about Mike Vrabel, he's going to get probably between $8 to $10 million a year to coach everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not. Woody Johnson has always been willing to spend, especially what he just did with all these players. But one thing he never really spent on was a head coach. And maybe he's at a point where he would pay that type of money to get an experienced coach. So that's something not so many people have talked about. And the other thing, if the Cowboy job happens to open up, and the Giant job is open, and the Jet job. I mean, quite honestly, if I visualize it, and I hope I'm wrong, I think he would look a lot more comfortable in a Cowboys or a Giant uniform than a Jet uniform.
It's true. Even the Raiders, I read that online too, that there's a possibility that he could go there and that he prefers to go there. I read some report yesterday he possibly prefers to go to the Raiders, but the Jets have to get this squared away here because they haven't had a real coach since Rex Ryan when you really kind of look down at the candidate list. And it's just been a disappointing season. Then you have to look at the quarterback position. I know. Now, are you for the team getting rid of Rodgers next year, or do you want to bring him back?
No, I really would like to cut bait, but I understand the debate or the discussion about keeping him because once what's out there, ability wise. I mean, I'm good with Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor if it would work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, ability wise, Aaron Rodgers actually, he's played halfway decent down the stretch. A couple of bad opponents. He's going to be a year older. I think he's out to prove he could play 17 games. The biggest mistake this year is that, all the story about that Woody wanted to bench him. To be honest with you, after that Denver game when he really got beat up really bad, I think that story got kind of twisted, and I think Woody maybe suggested he should sit down and get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if he did and he sat out 3 or 4 games, maybe the season wouldn't have derailed as fast as it did or completely. Maybe Taylor comes in and wins 1 or 2 games, and then Rodgers comes back healthy, and, he kind of, he plays the way he's playing because, the last 3 weeks you could see he definitely has a lot more mobility. But with that said, I just think the baggage, and it's funny because we had this discussion when we talked about Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
and I felt that the baggage wasn't worth it, and that was almost 3 years ago now, and we're having the same discussion. is the organization willing to put up with all the other stuff besides throwing footballs? And I think it's a lot to handle.
It is, and they really have to figure out what they're going to do here because I'm reading all these reports online that they could trade for Kirk Cousins. I think that's a disaster. I don't want any part of Kirk Cousins at all. But it's something that is interesting when Rodgers talks about if he were to come back next year that he would be open to training a rookie quarterback that they bring in. What about Jordan Travis? They drafted him last year. It's almost like he's completely forgot about. I mean, he was great at Florida State despite the injury.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, from what I hear, he's still not even 100%.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't bank on that. The one thing about Rodgers, I mean, I think the divorce is pretty much in place. because he's just taking shots at the owner and what's going on with the organization the last couple of weeks, especially once the story broke with Johnson and his sons and all this crap. And the other day, I'm sure you heard the soundbite when he took a shot, and he said, if I get cut, I may get cut by a 50-year-old. And to me, if you're the leader and you're the face of the organization, you don't say that about the owner.
No, yeah, he definitely made things rough, and he's been taking the shots there, and the media has been kind of going in on him for a while now. But do you think that, because that is something that I do think that it has been a little harped, because I've talked to a lot of people that have been on my show, and we've brought up Rodgers, because everyone calls him, oh, he's a bad man when he's on the field. That's usually what people describe him as. But I kind of threw the joke, well, he's kind of been a bad man on the field this year. But people have thought that he shouldn't get all the blame for this season, because I just think once they got rid of Salah, I think that's when they threw in the towel, because you can't have a coaching change that way and expect to go to a Super Bowl, even the playoffs, at that rate.
Well, no, I agree with you, and I'm not blaming Rodgers at all for this season. What I'm blaming, to be honest with you, is that the defense took a step back.
Absolutely.
The special teams have been horrendous, and it's mind-boggling to me. Actually, I just looked at it before I called you. This team could not establish a running game week by week. It's just I can't. I just don't know how that happened. You got Hall, Allen, and Davis, and what's really crazy is that, and of course, Rodgers is the main story, and Garrett Wilson chiming in, but Braylon Allen had this huge game against the Titans, and it seems like that's the last time they even used him all season.
Yeah. Yep, that was his big game, and everyone said they were going to be a 1-2 punch at Breece Hall. We talked about Breece Hall numerous amounts of times this year when we spoke, because he really took the step back there, because you mentioned it with him putting on the pounds. And he's really been a missing link all season. He's a completely different player than what he was the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a very good running back, but you're right. I don't think he's been as dynamic, and I think the real big problem with the rushing attack is, number one, well, I think Rodgers changes the play a lot at the line of scrimmage. I mean, 42 passes last week in that cold weather. There was no reason for that. And number two is, I think that the offensive running blocking scheme doesn't suit what they have. And I think that's really the biggest problem. I mean, Hall could run, Allen could run, Davis, he has potential. The line, actually, believe it or not, has come together. I mean, they've pass blocked better than run block, but the fact that they can't consistently run the ball, which would make life easier in a passing game, and it would keep the defense off the field.
It would,
and the biggest thing. Also, I'd love to sit down with a coach and let them explain to me why this happened, because I'm just not smart enough. But how could you justify that Zach Wilson, what's his name, Mike White, and Flacco, they put up like 17 to 18 points a game, and a Rodgers-led offense with the skill position players they have only scored 19 and a half, a point and a half different than Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It's insane when you look at it that the team was better with these guys that they previously had, because we all said it last year or the year before when we didn't have Rodgers that all this team was missing was a competent starting quarterback, and that's when the discussions came about with Derek Carr and Rodgers, and then we went with Rodgers and we said, all right, now the team is complete. And now it's like, is it the quarterback? It just seems as though everything just fell apart, especially the defense. I mean, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Quinnen Williams, these guys have really taken a step back. And I remember when we talked about it the last time about who they were going to extend for these rookies. I remember Hall was the guy that we talked about last time that you probably wouldn't give the extension to, but Gardner, I don't know what happened to him either.
I wouldn't give him an extension either right now. I really wouldn't. And, I was concerned that coming out of camp that they wouldn't be able to stop the run. And unfortunately, that was the case. But the fact that they've blown so many fourth quarter leads, it's mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling.
It is.
And with all the things with, firing the GM, firing the head coach, and, all the upheaval and, Rodgers playing banged up for probably a half a dozen games. You look at it and you go back to the Denver game, and how many, what were there, 6 or 7 games they were leading in the fourth quarter and they lost?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I would have never expected that this year. I really don't. And what are they? They're 4-11 right now.
Mm-hmm.
You could make the argument. You could probably give them 4 more wins. You probably could.
You absolutely. There's just a lot of games. The Seattle game was atrocious. That was one of them. That was just terrible. It's been a despicable season despite all the talent that they have on paper. I mean, Hassan Reddick, this guy is just a no-show. There really was no difference if he were to come back and if he just stayed out without that contract that he wanted, because he brought nothing to the team.
No, he was a complete waste. And it's interesting. I don't know if you saw it. They activated Greg Zuerlein. He's kicking in Buffalo this weekend.
Oh, yeah, they got to get a new kicker.
Well, I mean, to be all, I'll cut him a little slack. I do believe that he entered the season injured. I really do believe that, because he didn't look right over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was a little nicked up, or who knows what the story was. But I do believe he had some type of injury.
Yeah. What did you think about the Belichick reports? Did you buy into any of that?
I think Belichick did that to, he probably reached out to Tannenbaum. I'm sure he didn't call the Jets. But I think he did that to kind of gauge interest, to see if he'd get any bites from other clubs. Because I think if Tannenbaum said, "Oh yeah, Woody would sit down with you," I don't think there's not a prayer in the world Belichick would have sat down with the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that. What was it, that 30-30 with Parcells?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even want to go into the Jet locker room. He's going to come here and coach the team? I don't think
so. Unbelievable. Yeah, they better get Vrabel in here. I'm telling you. Or are you still open to Rex Ryan too?
Yeah, you know what? I was hot to trot for that, and I still would. But I think that ship has sailed. I really do. I think I was buying into all his talking on the radio about it, and I know just some of the people I've talked to. I don't think he's really a realistic shot. Maybe he gets an interview, but I don't even know if it's going to go that far. Maybe they talk to him, but I don't. I think it's going to be honest with you, I think if Vrabel don't get the job, I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played for the Jets, so
Yep.
I know that he's been another name that's come up. I know there's some people that aren't going to be happy about that because he's a new head coach who was just a coordinator. He's with Detroit, but it's going to be interesting to see how it really goes with Vrabel, if we can bring him in, because I think they should bring him in now. Like you said, maybe there's a deal in place as to why it's really not happening this far, but they're definitely going to have to get this straightened out for next season. And the draft talk is probably going to already start already. I know the Giants are already predicting to get Deion's son, so I know we have the 8th pick in the draft or something like that already. So I don't know what we're going to go in the direction of, because I don't think we're going to get a top quarterback there. I think they're going to be gone within the first couple picks.
Nah, we're just they'll grab one, I don't know, 2nd to 5th round, and maybe they get lucky. But Bart Scott keeps on telling me they have to draft that big defensive tackle. I think he's from Michigan. I forget his name. And because I think that's really important that they plug up the middle of that defensive line. I think that should be their number one priority. Because I don't think, once again, who knows? I mean, they say it's not a good quarterback draft, and you never know what, you can get somebody in the 6th round. You just don't know. But, if I had a crystal ball, and once again, this is just me thinking, I think that Rodgers ends up with a divorce with Woody, and I think he signs as a free agent with the 49ers. That's what I think. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Jets have Justin Fields a free agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Fields and Tyrod Taylor. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
It would. And it's insane when we think about it, the same draft as Zach Wilson, we should have took Fields, because now we're going to have to end up signing him anyway.
Well, it's a funny thing. I wanted him early on. And then I would watch him, and then he played one really bad game. And then I said to myself, is this guy a product of the system, or is this guy got problems? and I got turned off. And then I watched the Zach Wilson stuff, and I was fooled, and I bought into him, and that was a drastic mistake. And I mean, there's even rumors that the owner's son wanted Zach Wilson. Who knows?
Ugh.
I mean, and then meanwhile, I'm really happy for Donald, but the really, once again, it's hindsight, but they probably should have kept Donald and drafted Penny Sewell. That was probably the right way to go.
I'm probably looking at it, it's insane because I know we were ready to part ways with him. And I know the fan base, there's people that are in the fan base crying for Darnold back. And I just look at it, once you part ways with a player or just even with a coach, you can't go back again. I think you got to keep moving forward in those situations. It is kind of funny because if you looked at it, the Viking-Seahawk game, it was the battle of the ex-Jet quarterbacks, which have progressed since they've left.
Right, and you're right. And I would have no issue with Donald coming back. I don't think he would. I think he'd have to be a fool to put himself in front of this media and the fan base again. But also, I think he's in the perfect situation in Minnesota. It's got Josh McCown, he's got O'Connell, and he's a good fit there. Now, one thing I would say, I mean, how would you feel about this? If the new regime likes J.J. McCarthy, would you be willing to trade for him and let him sit behind Taylor?
Ooh, that is interesting. I think I'm open to anything at this point. I just want to see a change to where the franchise goes in the right direction because it's been 14 years now. I'm open to anything at this point. I think this has been probably one of the worst failed experiments in Jets history, probably all of sports. We didn't think Rodgers was gonna come here and it was gonna happen like this. We predicted playoffs, Super Bowl. We had big expectations and it completely failed. So I think I don't know if it could get any worse than this because I think this is some of the worst Jet football that anyone has seen, especially you. You've been a fan since the team has gotten here.
Yeah, well, because of the expectations, and I had them, going up to Buffalo this weekend to play them for the division title. I thought that's what that was going to play out. But if you once again, I'm not making the case to keep Rodgers, but if you look at his numbers statistically, they're a little misleading. But if you told me going into week 17, what do they have, 24, 25 touchdowns, whatever it is, and about 8 picks and 3,500 yards, if you gave me those type of numbers, I would have told you the Jets had 10, 11 wins in the bank.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I did want to mention this because did you get to watch the 30 for 30 with the sack exchange? What are your thoughts on Mark Gastineau confronting Brett Favre?
I thought that was Bush League. I really do. I know Marcus had his problems, but I think he kind of crossed the line, and I think Marty Lyons told it the way it was, and I'm glad he spoke out the way he did. I mean, does that Gastineau belong in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, probably so, but he was one-dimensional player. I never liked the showboating, and I guess, that's the way it is today, so he was before his time. But I just think he burned a lot of bridges, and I don't really think he was a very good teammate. And I think that's probably one of the reasons it's probably held him out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think so. Because we look at his statistics, I think he has 107.5 sacks or something like that. When you look at the statistics online, he's got the numbers. He's been to a couple Pro Bowls. He was dominant in his era. It's just interesting to see how he hasn't been really a candidate for the Hall of Fame, especially with Klecko getting in too. But we know he's been the Pro Bowl, all pro at the 4 positions on the line there. So that was long overdue.
Yeah, the gas. Now, the one thing that I was kind of disappointed about that show is, I mean, they told it the way it was, but except for about 10 or 15 minutes, I felt I was kind of just watching, like, a show about Gastineau, and it was basically like the Mark Gastineau story. And so it was like, it was kind of weird. I thought Klecko and Lyons and Salam, I don't think they got enough credit during that show, and I think it was more geared towards Mark's alienation that he put up between his teammates and the friction. I think it was more negative than positive.
Yeah, especially with Favre, because it's interesting when we look at it. I was like, I can't believe like Favre coming here, he had more success than Rodgers did. When you think about it, because with the Gastineau confrontation, I thought about when Favre was on the Jets that one year.
That's exactly right. I mean, I remember what were they 8-3, and then he got hurt. You know, it's I thought 8-3 they just blew out the Titans, and the Titans were undefeated. I said, oh man, this team has a real shot to go to the Super Bowl. And then they come home and they play Denver just like this year in the rain, by the way, in the pouring rain, and they lose to Jay Cutler, and the team just fell apart after that game.
It did, yeah. That was another year that we could have made some noise, and it just fell flat. And it's frustrating every year. It's just another disappointment, and I'm hoping that it gets better from here, but it's just, you never know. But I do know one thing: they definitely got to get the head coaching position right this time around, because that's what really changes everything. That's what really starts great franchises. When you look at the Rams, the Steelers, the Ravens, all these guys, they've had their coach for years now.
Well, yeah, you're right. I agree. Look at Tomlin. It just, you know, it's a funny thing. We always used to joke about the uniforms and the previous ones and how they reminded us of Adam Gase.
Yeah.
And now, you know, what are they going to change the uniforms again? I mean, I'm at a point right now. Just go back to the original white helmet uniforms, trash these, and start fresh. That's how I feel, because the Gase uniforms were a failure. The Aaron Rodgers uniforms were a failure right from the fourth play when he first took the field. So why, you know, if you believe in superstition, you know, just get rid of these uniforms too. Go back to the white.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Because since they went back to the Sack Exchange era logo, and I do love these uniforms. I like the logo.
Me too. I do like them.
I do like them. And I did say that there is too much oversaturation with the products of this logo, because there's so many jackets now, hats with this logo, and it's almost like we've had this logo for years with all the products that they've been releasing with this new logo. And it's just, it would be refreshing to see the old white helmets again. It's because they did bring it back this one game this season, and then Rodgers had that Hail Mary touchdown, and they still lost that game. And you know, it would be nice to see those uniforms, or even the ones that, when we think back to the Namath era, they were more of a lime green.
That was actually a nice game. That really was.
Yeah,
it really was. I mean, the ones they wore last week against the Rams, they look like string beans, you know, the Jolly Green Giant, you know, green on green. But it's just, a very, very disappointing year. It's unfortunate. And listen, nothing against Aaron Glenn. He may end up being the next Bill Belichick. Who knows? Nobody knows.
Yeah,
but it just. I want an experienced coach this time around. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. Now, I'll ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look back over the last 5 to 10 years, and I don't remember exactly when it happened, but the initial, when Woody, you know, doing all these coaching changes over the last 10 years, I had Jim Harbaugh before he went to Michigan. I think he was on an island, or Woody was on an island, and he never reached out to him, so we lost Jim Harbaugh at that point. And then, you know, he should have been jumping at Jim Harbaugh to let him go to the Chargers. He should let Saleh go right away.
I agree.
You know, he missed out on him twice.
He did, yeah, big time. And I even said it to the point last year too, when Vrabel was available. I said they should have got rid of Saleh and brought Vrabel in here. I just think that they needed a coaching change right away, and that was evident as soon as, because Woody Johnson, when he got rid of Saleh, he said it was my decision. Well, you should have got rid of him earlier, because you basically threw in the towel, because Ulbrich is horrible.
Well, isn't it kind of weird, as the last couple of regimes, that they, you know, Woody, you know, cuts the legs out of Saleh and Douglas, you know, early in the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he should have fired the head coach earlier. And look at the McCagnon era. I mean, they let him go to draft, and then he does the draft, and they fire him after the draft. So it's like, you know, it's like you just never know what to expect from the organization.
No. And apparently, I mean, with the rumors we're reading, he goes off of Madden statistics with his son, because that's why we didn't get Jerry Jeudy, because his Madden rating was low or something like that. Oh, it's unbelievable.
It really is. I think the only good thing going for us right now is that I really trust Tannenbaum a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, I'm only going from what I hear on the radio or talking to people. It doesn't appear that he's going to be part of the interview process. He's just going to put all the data and information to recommend people. And of course, I'm sure he's going to give a higher grade to certain people than others. But I think ultimately it's still going to come down to Woody and Jaime and probably Ira Axelrod or whoever else is going to sit on in those meetings to hire the new people.
Yeah, and they have to be on board, especially with bringing in the coach. I think Vrabel, he would want to bring in his own GM, so that would make sense. They just have to get the right coach in here for the first time with real experience, and if it happens to be Aaron Glenn, I mean, I guess that if that's our only option, I think we really don't have a choice if it comes down to that.
Right, and of course Brian Flores is floating out here. You hear his name, you hear Pete Carroll's name. I don't know. You hear that Liam Cohen from Tampa Bay, Ben Johnson. They're not coming to the Jets. Why would they come to the Jets? It's I'd rather roll the dice with Aaron Glenn. I mean, Brian Flores, I could take a shot, but I don't. I'm not sure if they have interest in him or really don't.
Yeah.
But you're right. Vrabel, at least publicly, has said he would take the job if he would match up with the right GM. So get it done. Get the thing done.
Yeah, I agree. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? You think it's going to be the Chiefs again?
It's a funny thing. I watch him on Christmas, and I'm watching it, and I'm saying to myself, who's going to beat this team?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to beat this team? Did the Lions and Chiefs play this year, by the way?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
I think the Bills and the Lions played, right?
Yeah.
That was a crazy hard guess. So I'm going to say the Chiefs didn't. I mean, as good as Josh Allen is, I don't see them winning a game in KC. Not after what I've seen. I watched the last two games by the Chiefs, and I don't see the Ravens doing it. I mean, are the Chargers, Houston, they're not in the same class.
No.
So I think it's going to be Chiefs Lions, and I'm going to go with Andy Reid until somebody beats them. I can't go against them.
No, we said that last year, and it looks like they're going to be the first team to three-peat here for a Super Bowl, and it's just I'm tired of them. We've seen them too many times now. It's getting too much.
I know, it really is. What really impressed me the other day was their defense. Their defense was really, really good.
It did.
They were clicking. They made Russell Wilson. Make some bad mistakes, and I think it'll be good. And in the NFC, I mean, I'm rooting for Donald. I'd love to see Donald in the Super Bowl with the Vikings. I don't know if it's going to happen, but boy, I'd love to see it.
It would be different. Whoever goes, I just hope the Chiefs don't win. That's all I care about.
Could you imagine if the Vikings actually play the Chiefs and they happen to beat them? And here's Donald holding them back. So that would put the cherry on top of the season.
It would.
They're moving on from Rodgers. It was a failed experiment, and Sam Donald has a career year, and he's holding the Lombardi Trophy because he just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? Right? I mean, wouldn't that? It almost sounds like it's headed in that direction.
It does. It would. That would be so ironic. Classic Jets. It really would be. It would just be another headline for them to torture the fan base with, and just to make a mockery out of the franchise. And who knows? We could see that, and we really would have to eat our crow. And I think we're kind of eating the crow already. That we probably shouldn't have gotten rid of Darnold, even though I think at that point he wasn't playing well when at the end of his time there.
I was down on him.
Yeah.
I think the two things that really hurt Donald a lot was, number one, once Gase took over, they got rid of Josh McCown. McCown and Gase just didn't see eye to eye. So I think not having McCown on the sidelines hurt Donald.
Yeah.
And if you look back, he actually started to get a little better towards that last year with Bowles. And then they switched coaches on him. And then he had the mono, and, then they stripped down the roster. And then Joe Douglas came out and told his parents, I'm going to build a fortress around him, and he got his head beat in. He had no receivers to throw to, had a horrible coach. I mean, he set the kid up to fail.
Yeah, he did. Joe Douglas was not a great GM. I know he had some good picks in the draft here and there. I mean, it looks like they're flopping now, but he was an awful GM.
Well, I'll go on record without doing the research and saying, so over a 6-year span, I've lost count. At some point this year, I think I was up to 14 kickers who have kicked over the last 6 years.
Wow.
I find it, and now probably could add another 1, 2 after these last 2. Yeah. I say probably in the history of the NFL over a 6-year span, nobody has had those many kickers.
No. Nope. And if you look at the quarterbacks too, it's always changing, a revolving door of quarterbacks. And I was really thinking about it. Who is because you've seen all of it, Ira. Who do you think is that second best Jet quarterback ever? We know the first is Namath, but I was running down the names. Kenny O'Brien, Vinny Testaverde, Pennington, Sanchez, of course. Who would you say was that second best Jet quarterback ever?
Success rate by winning or just overall body of work?
I think overall body of work.
I would probably, I can't count Favre Fitzpatrick, which they were 1-year deals, right?
Yeah.
I would probably, I love Pennington, but I think Kenny O'Brien was more athletic, gifted. I'd probably go Kenny O'Brien, but success rate, it's got to be Sanchez. I mean, 4 and 2 in the playoffs, and he beat all the top quarterbacks.
Yeah,
he goes in, he beats Peyton Manning. He goes in, he beats Brady. He goes in, who was quarterbacking? Carson Palmer was quarterbacking for the Bengals. He beats Phillip Rivers in San Diego. I mean, what your quarterback had that type of success? Nobody.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, yeah, there you go. There's the second best quarterback, and he went to the 2 back-to-back AFC championships. And after, we know what happened after that. It just went downhill, unfortunately. And I don't know. I just think with Idzik coming in, I just feel like the organization is in over its head because they there's that saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it, or whatever, how that phrase goes. And I feel as though they just changed up real quick when they didn't need to. They should have just kept going after those 2 years and not really changing things around, bringing in Tebow and Idzik. It was a mess.
Well, I think the biggest mistake was getting rid of Tannenbaum and keeping Rex.
Yeah.
I think Woody should have let the 2 of them finish it out or got rid of them both at the same time. And actually, if you really look at it, except for the 1 year with Bowles, and then they came up short in Buffalo, that the Jets have not been the same since.
No.
Since they split that pair up, it's been all downhill.
It has. Yep. And we're still looking for who the person's going to be to be the next one to bring us to the promised land. And I'm hoping that it's going to be Vrabel. I'm hoping. Yeah,
me too. And hopefully, he can work with somebody that's willing to take the GM job. And, you just got to hope for, and I think, I think his demeanor, he seems a little bit of like a hard ass. I think, that's exactly what this organization needs. And, I think that would be good. I mean, like if you see Vrabel walking up and down the Jets sideline, he's not Bill Belichick, but I think when you look at the Patriots when Belichick was in his heyday, the command and the respect that he got when you saw him standing on the sideline, I think Vrabel would be very similar.
Yeah, they need someone with a presence on that field, and because Saleh was a nice guy, he was too much. He was more for the players. You really didn't see any emotion out of him, and they need something different. Ulbricht's the same way. We know he's a disaster. I just can't wait for them to, if they do bring in Vrabel, to get him in ASAP.
Yeah, that would be good. Like I don't want to wait till after the Super Bowl to find out who my coach and GM is. I don't want to do that. And see, that's the other thing that bothers me. I hear Mike T on the radio all the time, and he keeps on saying this is going to be a very long process and it may take a couple of months. If that's the case, I think the longer and longer it goes on, I think the percentage of Vrabel goes down, at least in my eyes.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it's just clear as day here who the head coach should be. It's a no brainer, really.
Yeah, and I, maybe like I said, maybe they do have a handshake agreement. I don't know. I do know he has some type of relationship with Chris Johnson. So it'll be a good thing. And then, of course, now what do you do? Let's say I don't know how you feel about this. They name Vrabel the head coach, and whoever the GM is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Woody is leaving it up to them to make the decision, the quarterback, which he should. All right. What happens if Rodgers says, "I'll let you know at the end of March"? What do you do? You're gonna plan not to go. When you hit free agency, if Rodgers hasn't given you an answer, you need to know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to that, and if they have the option to keep him and Rodgers is on board with coming back, I guess you can bring him back. But if he's going to be like, oh, well, I need time, I think you have to make a statement and put your foot down, because who's running the organization? Because that's the thing. It's been looking like Rodgers been running the organization. So I think Vrabel has to put his foot down, show that I'm the coach of this team. If you're not going to give me the decision and we want you back and you're going to wait, we're going to move in another direction.
And right, and then the whole Gary Wilson thing that's come out.
Ugh.
You got that situation going, and up in Buffalo, that Rodgers wants that 500 touchdown going to Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
he force fed him last week, and he's going to do it again this week too. It's coming.
It definitely is. He's going to make it that way with Garrett Wilson too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player at times, but I do think they overrate him a little bit, and he's always screaming everywhere on the side every time. It's just always yelling. Always, I get he's frustrated, and he just wants to go out there and have success, which every player wants. But I do feel as though they overrate him a little bit, and he's kind of like a crybaby at times. Everything with him on the field, every time you see him, it's just ugh.
Yeah, I get it. And I tell you, the one shining thing about this roster is, boy, Will McDonald really had a much better season than I ever expected.
He did, yeah. After last year, where he didn't do anything. It was surprising.
No.
And I will say another thing too, that they really need the tight end room. They need a new tight end. They need a franchise tight end.
Yep. I agree. I mean, Conklin didn't cut it. I mean, Rucker, he stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeboah, he's just on the roster. They really need one. But also Rodgers, except for like dumping the ball off to Conklin, he really wasn't like it wasn't like the tight end was featured in the offense. It was like a safety valve.
Yeah. They never feature their tight ends, and they need to change that, because we look at remember Dustin Keller? he was great.
Oh, I love Keller. So here's the $1 million question. All right, what happens with Nathaniel Hackett if Rodgers comes back?
Oh, I think he's gone.
Well, you would think so, right?
Yeah.
And you wonder how that's going to sit well with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's his buddy. Ugh. That's pretty much the reason that he came here, if you think about it.
Well, see, that's the other thing. And with Rodgers coming back, I mean, you look at it his way. I'm going to be 42. Okay, I got a new head coach coming in. I got basically all new coaches coming in. I got to run a different system. I got to learn a new system. And, he could learn that in 2 weeks, probably, I'm sure. But does he want to go through that, or would he just rather go out to San Francisco, play for Kyle Shanahan, who runs that West Coast system, and go back home and try to win a Super Bowl in his hometown during his last season?
Yeah. I think I would rather go to San Francisco if I was him, because I just don't know what I'm going to be dealing with again. I'd rather go out more on top than going through some experiment again.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. It just, I may be dead wrong. I just think the handwriting's on the wall. I don't know how Rodgers could take shots at teammates, at how the organization's being run, at the owner's sons. I don't know how you do that and expect to be asked back. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either. And It's unfortunate, but we have two final games here. It's going to determine if they're going to keep their draft spot or if they're going to be moving back. But yeah, we got the Buffalo and Miami for the last two games.
Yeah, that Miami game is going to be a rip roar because if the Chargers or the Broncos win, the Dolphins are eliminated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so I mean, the Dolphins will be coming to New York. It's going to be cold. The game don't mean anything. It's the Jets will end up winning that game and will finish 5-12.
yeah,
And so 5-12 will probably that could bounce us out of the top 10, right?
yeah, yep.
That would be unbelievable.
It would be.
That would really be unbelievable. And look at the Giants situation. They're sitting there with the number one pick, and there's no surefire franchise quarterback.
No, yeah, they keep flipping back and forth with Deion's son and the other prospect that's out there. It's crazy to see what they're going to do. I think this, because I look at this, how bad it's been for both teams, even though the Giants have won 2 Super Bowls recently. They got to just change the whole aura around these two franchises. Get new stadiums for each team. There's something about MetLife, too. Just get rid of the stadium.
Yeah, the whole state, it's been a disaster. Well, not for the Giants, but for the Jets, it's been a disaster. Really, even though 2010 they were in that building. It just hasn't worked out for them in that building. It's really it's really unbelievable. It really is, and gotta hope for the best. And hopefully we're not waiting 2 months for a head coach.
Yeah, hopefully they get it done within the coming days or weeks here. Hurry up already, get this done with Vrabel.
I mean that would be very, very nice if they could solidify that and we'll see. It's well. When did they hire? Let me see. They hired Salah mid-January, right?
Mm-hmm. It was in the winter time, yeah, like deep winter.
Yeah. So I would, if I had to kind of like just take a shot and guess, I'd say by middle of January this thing will be resolved.
Yeah.
Maybe not the GM, but I think the head coach. I think.
I hope so.
I think if he's not named the head coach within the next, what's today, the 27th, 28th?
27th. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say 3 weeks from today, if Vrabel is not named the head coach of the Jets, like I told you earlier, I think the percentages go, every day that goes by, you could take off another couple of points, that the odds are that he's coming here.
Yeah, I don't see him coming here if, like you said, the longer it takes, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
No. And now you say he has interest in the Raider job?
Yeah, that's what I read online from a reporter saying that he's interested into the Raider position.
Now, if there's any truth to that, and during the early part of our conversation, when I talk about salaries for head coaches, what he's willing to pay, he's not going to outbid Mark Davis.
No.
That's not going to happen.
No.
So if the Raider rumor is actually true, and Vrabel really would like to go out there, he's not using that for leverage to get the Jets price up. He's going to get over $10 million a year, and man, oh man, unless Woody's just completely lost his patience and is just willing to do anything, I don't see Woody Johnson spending over $10 million for head coach. I don't see it.
Yeah. Oof. That's because I think he should be fed up now, because the fan base they've been fed up for years now. So I think he's the owner. He should be fed up like us. Let's get the right guy here.
Yeah, because look, I mean, look how much money this guy has spent over the last couple of years trying to get this right. And I got a lot of time on my hands now, with rehab. I got to sit down, and since day one of the Rodgers experiment, I would love to know how much money they Woody spent in bringing players in. It has to be a fortune.
Yeah, a lot, because they brought in a lot of star players for this roster, and it just didn't pan out. Because on paper, I said it, they're a Super Bowl team. They're playing.
Yes.
On paper, I mean, when you look at when Brees Hall how he was performing, how all these players were performing pre-Rodgers that they drafted, and then you add all these stars in, you would think that it was a Super Bowl team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just take a wild guess at it, but I'd say between Rodgers' salary and then all the players he brought in, I bet you he spent over $250 million.
Yeah. Yeah. High amount for
or,
sure.
or close to it. I mean, Adams wasn't cheap. It just some really high priced people.
It definitely is. It's a shame to see that it was another failed experiment, because I know the fan base doesn't deserve it. They've wanted to see them win for years. At 14 years, last time I remember I told you this. I was in 5th grade. I was in elementary school the last time the Jets made the playoffs.
That is it's unbelievable. It's hard to believe. It really is hard to believe. And I remember the last playoff berth that we clinched. I was in Chicago in 2010, and they were playing the Bears in the snow, and they blew a game very late. But they made the playoffs. Either the Steelers won or lost. I don't know. I forget what the scenario was. So even though the Jets lost, they clinched a playoff spot because somebody else lost. And it was like, I didn't feel good about it because that happened. But now, it's just, I'll take anything, man. If they go 7-10 next year and get into the playoffs, I don't care what the record is. I'll take anything.
Yeah, I will too. Because I mean, when you think about it, is this going to be 15 years? I mean, it just keeps going up. It's the longest drought in all 4 North American sports.
Yeah, it really is. And I think you're a Mets fan, right?
Yeah, Mets and Knicks.
Yeah, so it looks like the Knicks are headed in the right direction, right?
Yeah, for once, it looks like it. I think they need to get some more players on the bench. I think they could use probably another 3-point shooter, a little bit more defense, and they need some players coming back from injuries. But I think they're heading in the right direction.
So between the Knicks, Mets, and Jets, which one of the 3 has a better chance to get into a championship game within the next few years?
I would have to say it's either the Knicks or the Mets, because the Mets, I think they need to re-sign Pete Alonso, and if they need to bring in another starting pitcher, work on the bullpen, and if they could do that, I would say the Mets, because they made the World Series. They almost made the World Series last year. They were only a couple games away, and now they got Soto. But if they were able to retain Alonso, work on the bullpen, bring in another starting pitcher, I think that they would be the closest. And then I think the Knicks are right there, but it's tough to say how with them staying healthy and if the pieces that they have to get at the trade deadline.
All right. Well, the thing that bothers me is that I hear so many fans or people on the radio not even talking like championship or building a franchise. They're just starting to get a wild card game.
Yeah.
And I completely understand, but let's say they go that. Let's say they bring Rodgers back. They keep the pieces in place. They make a wild card. They're losing the first round. Then what do you do the following year?
Yeah.
You're going to bring them back again at 43? I mean, that's why I know the right thing for the organization and the smart thing is to rebuild this and try to get this right, within a 3-year span. But I just think the fan base, including myself, we've had so much. We just, even though that's what's probably best, you don't want to deal with that because you want to be playing a football game at the end of January.
Yeah. Yep. And I knew it once the Denver game happened this year. Once they lost to Denver, I said that's not a team. Despite that they did have success late in the season, I still don't buy them. I said that's not a team that you lose to if you want to make a deep playoff run to the Super Bowl. It's not.
No. And you put up 9 points. I know we missed a couple of kicks, but you put up 9 points against, in the rain at home against that team at that point in the season. That was a bad omen. And the season could have been so different had they beaten the Broncos and Rodgers and get beat up. I really do believe they would have been in the thick of things right now. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. That was the game that was the turning point. The Niner game was alarming. It definitely was, but we didn't expect to beat the Niners. But the Bronco was the one that I said, yeah, this feels like the game that just cost them the season.
Yep, and the clincher was losing up in Foxborough. That was, and that also was at the end of the game. They let them march right down the field, right?
Yep.
So it's just, they got to reboot it. Hopefully, they get this right, and hopefully, the next conversation we'll be talking about is Mike Vrabel as your head coach.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope, Ira. Is there anything else you'd love to let the audience know? Anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to get out there?
No, I think it's all good, and happy and healthy New Year to you, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Happy, healthy New Year to you as well, Ira. Praying again for the recovery as soon as possible, day by day, and you'll be back up soon.
Sounds good, my man. Thank you.
Of course, Ira. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks.
Yeah.